What if I told you that 3 billion years ago, Earth's sky was orange, its oceans were green, and it rained liquid methane for millions of years ... And this impossible world actually existed, completely rewriting everything we thought we knew about life itself. Wait, what? That's right. NASA's recently declassified geological surveys have revealed that our planet was once an alien world so bizarre, so utterly different from today, that if you could travel back in time, you wouldn't even recognize it as Earth. In the next 3 hours, as you drift peacefully towards sleep, you'll discover how this impossible ancient world shaped every breath you take, every heartbeat in your chest, and why scientists kept these mind-bending discoveries quiet for decades. Picture this. You're floating above a planet where purple bacteria ruled vast crimson seas, where the very air would be poison to us, where mountains moved like living creatures, and where the first stirrings of consciousness emerged from pools of liquid crystal. This isn't science fiction. This is the hidden history of our home, revealed through cosmic detective work that reads the secret messages written in stone. Before we begin this journey together, take a moment to like this video if you're ready to have your mind gently blown. Subscribe for more cosmic bedtime stories, and comment below with your country and what time you're listening. I love knowing where in the world our fellow time travelers are joining us tonight. The most incredible part? Everything I'm about to share with you is written in the rocks beneath your feet, in the very atoms of your body, in the light from stars you can see outside your window. You are quite literally made of this ancient world, carrying its secrets in every cell. Are you comfortable? Good. Close your eyes if you'd like, and let me take you back 3 billion years to a world so strange, so beautiful, that by the end of our journey, you'll never look at a sunrise the same way again. Let me start with something that will change how you see the world forever. Step outside tomorrow morning and look up at our brilliant blue sky. That blue you're seeing? It didn't exist for the first 2 billion years of Earth's history. Instead, our planet wore a cloak of deep orange and amber, like being trapped inside a piece of ancient resin. But here's where it gets mysterious. When scientists first discovered this through atmospheric analysis of ancient rocks, they couldn't explain why. The chemistry was all wrong. The mathematics didn't add up. It was as if they were looking at evidence from an alien planet, not our own Earth. Imagine floating in a spacecraft above this ancient world. Below you stretches an endless ocean, but not the deep blue we know today. These waters shimmer with an otherworldly green luminescence, like liquid jade mixed with copper pennies. The continents are small, scattered islands of black volcanic rock, constantly reshaping themselves as the planet's young crust shifts and buckles like a restless sleeper. The air itself tells a story that defies everything we thought we knew about life. Breathe in this ancient atmosphere, and you'd immediately understand why early Earth seemed impossible to us. There's virtually no oxygen, less than 1% of what we breathe today. Instead, the air is thick with methane, ammonia, and hydrogen sulfide. It's an atmosphere that would kill us in minutes, yet somehow it was perfect for the first living things. But here's the part that kept scientists awake at night. The evidence showed that life wasn't just surviving in this toxic world, it was thriving. Vast mats of microorganisms stretched across the ocean floors like living carpets, processing chemicals and energy in ways that seemed to violate the basic rules of biology. The mystery deepened when researchers realized that this ancient atmosphere was actually more complex than our modern one. While we have roughly 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen, the ancient air was a cocktail of dozens of different gases, each playing a role in a planetary symphony we're only now beginning to understand. Picture the light filtering through this orange sky. Sunsets weren't red and gold as they are today, but deep purple and burgundy, casting shadows that shifted through the spectrum like an aurora painted across the landscape. The sun itself appeared different, smaller, cooler, yet somehow more intense. its light scattered by atmospheric particles that no longer exist. And then came the discovery that changed everything. Hidden in ancient rock formations called banded iron formations, scientists found evidence of something impossible. The atmosphere was breathing. Yes, breathing. The chemical signatures showed regular cycles, like the planet itself was inhaling and exhaling on a scale of thousands of years. This breathing wasn't metaphorical. The entire planet was engaged in a slow, rhythmic exchange of gases that regulated temperature, chemical composition, and even the intensity of cosmic radiation reaching the surface. Earth was already alive, already self-regulating, billions of years before the first complex cells evolved. As we prepare to dive deeper into this ancient world, imagine yourself settling into that rhythm, the slow, ancient breathing of a young planet finding its way in the cosmos. Feel your own breathing slow to match that primordial pace, knowing that the oxygen filling your lungs today began its journey in those ancient orange skies. The greatest mystery was yet to come, though, because hidden in those breathing patterns, scientists discovered something that would revolutionize our understanding of life itself. What scientists discovered next shattered every assumption about early life on Earth. Those green, luminescent oceans I mentioned, they weren't just colored by minerals or algae. They were green because the water itself was alive, not with creatures swimming in it, but as a living, breathing entity that spanned continents. Let me paint you a picture so vivid you can almost taste the ancient salt air. Imagine standing on the shore of this primordial sea. The waves that lap at your feet aren't clear or blue, but a deep jade color with streaks of copper and gold running through them like veins in marble. Each wave carries with it millions upon millions of microscopic architects, bacteria that are literally building the world, one chemical reaction at a time. But here's where the story takes an impossible turn. When marine geologists first analyzed core samples from ancient ocean floors, they found something that shouldn't exist: perfectly organized mineral structures that stretched for hundreds of miles, too complex and too systematic to be random geological formations. These weren't just bacterial mats. They were bacterial cities. Picture vast underwater metropolises built not of stone or metal, but of living chemistry. Towers of crystallized minerals spiraling up from the ocean floor, connected by networks of bacterial filaments that conducted chemical messages across thousands of miles. These microscopic organisms had created Earth's first communication network, sharing information about food sources, environmental changes, and threats at the speed of chemical diffusion. The most beautiful part, these bacterial cities were artists. They didn't just process chemicals for survival. They arranged them into patterns of stunning complexity. When scientists examined these ancient structures under electron microscopes, they found geometric designs that wouldn't look out of place in a cathedral. Spirals within spirals, fractal patterns that repeated at every scale, and crystalline formations that seemed to follow mathematical principles we're only now discovering. Imagine swimming through these ancient waters, surrounded by living architecture that responds to your presence. As you move, waves of bioluminescence ripple outward like underwater aurora. The bacteria sense your movement and communicate it to their neighbors, creating patterns of light that spread across miles of ocean floor. But the revelation that kept scientists staring at their data in disbelief was this: these bacterial communities were farming. Not in any way we'd recognize, but they were deliberately cultivating specific minerals and chemicals, creating vast gardens of iron, sulfur, and phosphorus that they tended with the precision of master gardeners. The evidence was written in the rocks themselves. Layer upon layer of banded iron formations showed not random deposition, but careful cultivation. The bacteria were mining specific elements from the water, concentrating them, and then depositing them in organized patterns that created optimal growing conditions for the next generation. This wasn't just survival, this was planning. These microscopic organisms were thinking ahead, preparing the environment for their descendants thousands of years in the future. They were Earth's first environmental engineers, and they were doing it 3 billion years ago. Close your eyes and imagine the sound this ancient ocean might have made. Not the crash of modern waves, but something more subtle. A constant, gentle bubbling as billions of bacteria released gases, processed chemicals, and communicated through molecular signals. A whispered conversation spanning continents, the planet's first global discussion about how to build a world. The ocean currents moved differently too. Without complex geography to channel them, the waters flowed in massive, simple patterns that carried chemical messages around the globe in great circular conversations. The Pacific was speaking to the Atlantic. The Arctic was sending messages to what would someday become the Indian Ocean. And then researchers made a discovery that changed everything we thought we knew about consciousness itself. Hidden in the patterns of these bacterial communications, they found something that looked suspiciously like memory. What if I told you that 3 billion years ago, rocks could remember? Not metaphorically, but literally storing information, processing it, and even making decisions based on past experiences. This is where our journey into ancient Earth takes a turn that challenges everything we think we know about the nature of consciousness itself. Deep beneath the ocean floors, in layers of stone that formed during those ancient green seas, scientists discovered something that shouldn't exist: mineral matrices that showed clear evidence of information storage and retrieval. Patterns in the crystal lattice that suggested these rocks weren't just passive recipients of geological processes, but active participants in a planetary memory system. Imagine a world where the ground beneath your feet remembers every raindrop that ever fell, every temperature change, every chemical reaction that ever occurred. This wasn't metaphorical memory. It was actual information encoded in the atomic structure of the minerals themselves, accessible and modifiable by the bacterial communities living within the rocks. Picture yourself shrinking down to the molecular level, swimming through the crystal matrix of an ancient stone. Around you, atoms are arranged not in simple, repetitive patterns, but in complex configurations that encode information about the environment. Temperature fluctuations from thousands of years ago are written in the spacing between molecules. Chemical compositions are recorded in the types and arrangements of different elements. The bacteria living in these rocks weren't just eating minerals, they were reading them. Like living computers accessing a vast database, they could decode the information stored in the crystal structures and use it to make decisions about their own behavior. If the rocks remembered a particularly harsh climate from centuries past, the bacteria would prepare differently for seasonal changes. But here's where it gets truly mind-bending. These rock bacteria partnerships were writing new information too. Every significant environmental event was recorded, stored in multiple copies throughout the mineral matrix, creating a redundant backup system that ensured important information would never be lost. Scientists first noticed this when they found that similar rock formations on opposite sides of ancient continents contained identical information patterns, patterns too complex and specific to be coincidental. It was as if the rocks were communicating with each other across vast distances, sharing and synchronizing their memories. Imagine the implications. The very ground you're standing on might contain memories stretching back billions of years. Every major event in Earth's history, asteroid impacts, climate changes, the first emergence of oxygen, all of it potentially encoded in the stones beneath your feet, waiting to be read by organisms sophisticated enough to decode the messages. The ancient bacterial communities had developed something even more remarkable. They could edit these rock memories. When environmental conditions changed, they didn't just add new information. They went back and modified existing patterns, essentially rewriting history to better serve their survival needs. This discovery forced scientists to reconsider what we mean by consciousness and intelligence. Here were simple, single-celled organisms demonstrating behaviors that suggested planning, communication, and even historical analysis. They were using the rocks as both library and laboratory, storing knowledge and running experiments that span geological timescales. Close your eyes and imagine the deep, slow conversations happening in the stone foundations of our planet. Chemical whispers passing between bacteria and minerals. Information flowing through crystal lattice, like thoughts through neural networks. The Earth itself thinking, remembering, learning from its own history. The most beautiful part of this discovery was how it connected to the breathing atmosphere we discussed earlier. The rock memories were synchronized with the atmospheric cycles, creating a feedback loop between the living and non-living parts of the planet. When the atmosphere inhaled, it triggered responses in the rock-based memory systems. When it exhaled, it released information that influenced weather patterns and chemical cycles. Earth wasn't just alive. It was developing a form of planetary consciousness, a slow, deep awareness that operated on timescales we can barely comprehend. But the researchers weren't prepared for what they discovered. Next, evidence that this planetary memory system was beginning to dream. Welcome back, fellow time travelers. I can feel you settling deeper into this ancient world, your breathing synchronizing with the slow rhythms of primordial Earth. Before we continue our journey into the planet's earliest dreams, I want to acknowledge something beautiful. Wherever you are right now, listening to this story, you're part of a global community of curious minds exploring the cosmos together. From bedrooms in Tokyo to living rooms in Sao Paulo, from dorm rooms in London to quiet spaces in Mumbai, we're all connected by this shared wonder about our origins. Now, let me tell you about the discovery that made hardened geologists question everything they thought they knew about the nature of reality itself. Hidden in rock formations from 3 billion years ago, researchers found patterns that could only be described as dreams, not the chaotic, symbolic dreams of sleeping humans, but something far more profound. Systematic variations in mineral compositions that followed cyclical patterns spanning thousands of years, like the planet itself was processing information during periods of reduced activity. Imagine ancient Earth entering something analogous to sleep. The violent volcanic activity would calm, the churning of the young crust would slow to a gentle pulse, and the bacterial communities would enter synchronized phases of reduced activity. During these quiet periods, something extraordinary happened in the rock memory systems we discovered earlier. The information stored in the mineral matrices would begin to reorganize itself, not randomly, but in patterns that suggested the planet was processing its experiences, creating new connections between different types of environmental data, essentially running simulations of possible futures based on past events. Picture this: vast networks of bacteria, embedded in crystalline matrices, engaging in something that looked remarkably like REM sleep. Chemical signals would pulse through the rock formations in slow, rhythmic waves. Temperature variations would create standing wave patterns that lasted for centuries. The very stones would hum with a frequency so low it was more felt than heard. During these dreaming phases, the planet was apparently running experiments. The bacterial communities would create hypothetical scenarios. What if the atmospheric composition changed? What if temperatures dropped significantly? What if new types of chemical reactions became possible? They would test these scenarios in isolated mineral chambers, tiny laboratories scattered throughout the planet's crust. The evidence for this planetary dreaming was written in layers of stone that showed impossible mineral combinations, crystals that could only form under specific conditions that never actually existed at those times. It was as if the bacteria were asking "what if" questions and then creating the conditions to explore the answers, even if those conditions were purely theoretical. But here's where the story becomes almost mystical. Some of these dream experiments seem to be prophetic. Mineral formations from 3 billion years ago showed structures that perfectly mimicked environmental conditions that wouldn't actually occur on Earth for another billion years. The planet was apparently dreaming its own future. Scientists found evidence of bacterial communities that had prepared for ice ages that were still millions of years away. that had developed responses to oxygen levels that wouldn't exist for eons, that had created chemical pathways for processing minerals that wouldn't be available until continents shifted and new rock types became exposed. Close your eyes and feel yourself floating through this dreaming planet. Beneath you, vast networks of mineral consciousness pulse with slow, deep thoughts. The rocks themselves are alive with possibility, exploring futures that exist only in the realm of chemical potential. You're witnessing the birth of imagination itself, the first time matter learned to dream. The most profound discovery was that these dreams weren't random. They followed patterns that suggested the planet was developing something analogous to emotions' preferences for certain types of chemical stability, aversions to specific temperature ranges, even what could only be described as curiosity about its own potential for complexity. During particularly deep dreaming phases, the planet would create mineral poems, crystalline structures of such beauty and complexity that they served no survival function at all. They existed purely as expressions of the planet's growing aesthetic sense, its developing appreciation for form and pattern and mathematical harmony. Imagine swimming through underground caverns filled with these mineral artworks, crystals that spiraled through impossible geometries, rock formations that sang in harmonious frequencies when touched by groundwater, chambers where every surface was covered in fractal patterns that seemed to extend infinitely inward. These weren't just geological formations. They were Earth's first attempts at self-expression, the planet's earliest efforts to create beauty for its own sake. And they were being created by bacterial communities that had learned to value more than just survival. They had developed an aesthetic sense, a desire to make their world not just habitable, but beautiful. The rhythms of these dreaming cycles matched the atmospheric breathing we discussed earlier, creating a feedback loop between the planet's conscious and unconscious processes. When Earth was awake and actively processing its environment, it influenced the dream patterns. When it was dreaming, those dreams influenced how it would respond to future environmental challenges. As you settle deeper into your own dreams tonight, remember that you're participating in a tradition that's 3 billion years old. The cosmic practice of processing experience through imagination, of exploring possibility through the theater of the mind. You are the latest expression of Earth's ancient capacity for dreams, but our journey is just beginning. The most incredible discoveries about this ancient world are yet to come, and as we move forward, the pace of our exploration will gradually slow, matching the deep, contemplative rhythms of the planet we're discovering together. As we drift deeper into our exploration of ancient Earth, I want you to imagine something that will fundamentally change how you see every building, every bridge, every structure humans have ever created. 3 billion years ago, long before there were any creatures with eyes to see them, vast architectural wonders were rising from the ocean floors, not built by intelligence as we understand it, but by something far more patient and profound. The bacterial communities we've been following in our journey had evolved beyond simple survival. They had become Earth's first architects, and their blueprints were written in the language of chemistry itself. Picture yourself descending through those ancient green waters, past the shimmer of bioluminescent communication networks, down to where the ocean floor reveals its secrets. Here, rising like cathedrals from the depths, are structures that dwarf anything humans have ever built. Towers of living stone, spiraling up from the seabed in elegant helices, their surfaces covered in intricate patterns that seem to pulse with their own internal light. These aren't random formations. Every curve, every angle, every decorative element serves multiple functions simultaneously. The spiral towers create optimal water flow patterns that distribute nutrients throughout the entire structure. The surface patterns aren't just beautiful, they're complex chemical processors, each geometric element designed to catalyze specific reactions. But here's what takes your breath away. These bacterial architects were building with mathematics. The proportions of their towers follow the golden ratio with perfect precision. The spiral patterns incorporate Fibonacci sequences. The internal chambers are arranged according to principles of sacred geometry the human mathematicians wouldn't discover for billions of years. Imagine walking through the corridors of these ancient structures. The walls around you are alive, constantly growing and reshaping themselves, but always maintaining perfect mathematical harmony. Chambers expand and contract in response to environmental conditions, but the overall proportions never vary. It's as if the bacteria had discovered universal principles of beauty and were expressing them in living architecture. The most remarkable discovery was that these structures were connected, not just physically, through underground networks of bacterial filaments, but architecturally. The design elements of a tower built on one side of an ancient ocean would perfectly complement the design of a tower built on the opposite shore. Different bacterial communities, separated by thousands of miles of ocean, were collaborating on coordinated architectural projects that spanned continents. Scientists realized they were looking at Earth's first cities, not collections of individual buildings, but integrated urban environments where every structure supported every other structure. The bacterial architects had solved problems of resource distribution, waste management, and environmental regulation that our modern cities still struggle with. Close your eyes and feel yourself floating through these underwater metropolises. The water around you moves in carefully channeled currents, carrying nutrients where they're needed, removing waste products, maintaining perfect chemical balance throughout the entire city organism. You're witnessing urban planning at a level of sophistication that makes our modern cities look like crude sketches. The bacteria weren't just building for themselves. They were building for species that didn't even exist yet. Deep within their towers, they created chambers with environmental conditions that wouldn't be naturally available on Earth for millions of years. They were preparing homes for the descendants of descendants they would never meet, based on their dream simulations of the planet's future evolution. Some chambers were designed for higher oxygen levels, others for different temperature ranges. Some were built to house organisms that would need specific mineral compositions, or pH levels. The bacterial architects were building a world for life forms they could only imagine, guided by their growing understanding of evolutionary possibility. The most beautiful aspect of these ancient cities was their relationship with time. Unlike human architecture, which is built to resist time, these structures embraced it. They were designed to evolve, to grow more complex and beautiful with age. What we were seeing in the fossil record wasn't decay, it was architectural maturation, structures becoming more sophisticated as they aged. Imagine buildings that improve with time, that learn from their inhabitants and adapt their forms to better serve their needs. Imagine cities that grow more efficient and more beautiful with each passing century, guided by an architectural wisdom that spans geological timescales. The bacterial architects had achieved something we're still trying to understand. They had created living buildings that were simultaneously individual structures and parts of a larger planetary organism. Each tower was autonomous, capable of independent function, but also intimately connected to every other structure on Earth. As you begin to feel the gentle pull of sleep, picture yourself resting in one of these ancient chambers, surrounded by walls that pulse gently with the rhythm of planetary consciousness. The structure around you is alive, aware, and infinitely patient, designed by architects who thought in millions of years and built for beauty that transcends survival. These builders were preparing for something magnificent. In the quiet darkness of their mineral chambers, they were nurturing the chemical processes that would eventually give birth to the oxygen revolution, the transformation that would turn our orange sky blue and set the stage for everything that followed. In the deepest chambers of those ancient bacterial cities, something impossible was happening. Organisms that had thrived in a world without oxygen were systematically preparing for their own extinction, engineering the very revolution that would transform Earth's atmosphere and make their way of life impossible forever. This is perhaps the most beautiful paradox in the history of life. The first great act of planetary sacrifice, where an entire biosphere, chose to give up its dominance to make room for something greater. Imagine floating through the quiet corridors of an ancient bacterial city 3 billion years ago. The water around you is still that otherworldly green, rich with minerals and completely devoid of free oxygen. But here and there, in specially constructed chambers sealed off from the main structure, you notice something different. Tiny bubbles rising in perfect spirals, catching the filtered light like liquid diamonds. These bubbles contain oxygen, not much, just trace amounts. But their presence in this ancient world is as revolutionary as finding fire in the depths of space. The bacterial communities weren't just accidentally producing oxygen as a waste product. They were deliberately concentrating it, studying it, learning to harness its incredible chemical power. But here's what kept scientists awake at night when they first understood what they were seeing. These bacteria were killing themselves to create it. Oxygen was poison to them. Their entire biochemistry was built around its absence. Yet they were systematically converting their life-sustaining hydrogen sulfide and methane into this toxic gas, sealing it away in mineral chambers like some kind of chemical time bomb, waiting for the day when it would be released into the atmosphere. Picture the sacrifice involved. These weren't mindless chemical reactions. The evidence suggests these organisms understood, on some level, that they were preparing the way for something greater than themselves. They were Earth's first prophets, seeing the future they would never experience and working to bring it into existence. Close your eyes and imagine the conversations that must have passed through their chemical communication networks. How do you convince an entire global ecosystem to participate in its own transformation? How do you coordinate billions of individual organisms to work toward a goal that will end their way of life forever? The answer lies in those dreaming phases we discovered earlier. During the planet's deep meditative states, the bacterial communities weren't just processing current information. They were accessing something that could only be called wisdom. They were seeing patterns that stretched across deep time, understanding their role in a story much larger than their individual survival. The oxygen chambers they built were works of art as much as they were chemical laboratories. Each one was uniquely designed, with crystalline walls that would slowly dissolve over millions of years, releasing their precious cargo in carefully timed sequences. They were building a future atmosphere, one molecule at a time, with the precision of master composers writing a symphony that would play out across geological ages. But the most remarkable discovery was how they prepared for the transition. In the deepest vaults of their cities, they were preserving seeds, not biological seeds, but chemical templates for the life forms that would inherit the oxygenated world they were creating. Mineral matrices that contained the blueprints for oxygen-breathing organisms, stored in crystal vaults that would remain stable for billions of years. These ancient bacteria weren't just transforming the atmosphere, they were designing their own replacements. Using their dream state simulations of possible futures, they were engineering the genetic and chemical foundations for forms of life that hadn't evolved yet, couldn't evolve until the atmospheric conditions changed. Imagine the patience required for such a project. These organisms were working toward goals that wouldn't be achieved for hundreds of millions of years. They were participating in a planetary plan that spanned timescales so vast that no individual bacterium would ever see its completion. Yet somehow, they maintained their commitment across countless generations. The most beautiful part was how they said goodbye. As the oxygen levels in their sealed chambers reached critical mass, preparing for eventual release, the bacterial communities created memorial chambers, spaces where they recorded their history, their achievements, their hopes for the world they were creating. These weren't written records as we understand them, but something far more elegant. Crystalline formations that encoded their experiences in geometric patterns. Mineral poems that told the story of Earth's first civilization, preserved in stone for any future intelligence sophisticated enough to read them. Feel yourself floating through these memorial chambers, surrounded by the crystallized memories of beings who chose to transform their world rather than simply inhabit it. Their sacrifice wasn't motivated by desperation or survival pressure. It was an act of cosmic love, a gift to forms of life they could only imagine. As the first wisps of oxygen began to leak from their carefully constructed chambers, mixing with the ancient atmosphere and beginning the slow transformation from orange to blue, these bacterial prophets continued their work with increasing urgency. They knew their time was ending, and they had so much left to prepare. The oxygen revolution wouldn't happen overnight. It would take millions of years for atmospheric conditions to change enough to support the new forms of life they were designing. But when that moment came, when the first oxygen-breathing organisms opened their cellular eyes to a blue sky, they would inherit a world that had been prepared for them with infinite care and impossible foresight. Rest now in the quiet chambers of these ancient architects, listening to the gentle bubbling of oxygen being slowly, patiently manufactured for a future they chose to believe in. Their rhythm is becoming your rhythm, their patient breathing becoming your own deeper, slower breath as you drift toward dreams that bridge the vast expanses of time. Picture the most gradual sunrise you can imagine, but instead of happening over minutes or hours, this sunrise took place across millions of years. The orange sky that had cloaked Earth for billions of years was slowly, almost imperceptibly, beginning to change. But this wasn't just a change in color. This was the most profound transformation in the history of life. A revolution so complete that it would alter not just what Earth looked like, but what it meant to be alive at all. Imagine yourself as one of the last observers of that ancient orange world, floating high above the planet during the earliest stages of the oxygen revolution. Below you, the green oceans still dominate, but there's something new happening at the boundaries between water and air. Tiny patches of different colored water, not the deep jade green you've grown accustomed to, but hints of blue, small areas where oxygen-producing organisms have begun to change the chemistry of the sea itself. The most remarkable thing about this transformation is how beautiful it was. Each stage of the change created new forms of natural art that had never existed before. As oxygen levels rose, new types of minerals formed, brilliant blues and purples and reds that caught the changing light in spectacular ways. The bacterial cities we explored earlier were transforming too. The careful architects of those ancient structures had built them to participate in this change. As oxygen concentrations increased, dormant chambers deep within the towers began to activate. Walls that had been solid for millions of years became permeable. Chemical processes that had been waiting in stasis suddenly came to life. Close your eyes and imagine swimming through one of these transforming cities. The corridors around you are changing color as new chemical reactions activate. Walls that were once dark stone are beginning to glow with bioluminescent patterns you've never seen before. The very architecture is coming alive in new ways, responding to the changing atmospheric chemistry. But here's what makes this moment in Earth's history so emotionally powerful. The ancient bacterial communities weren't just passively experiencing this transformation. They were celebrating it. As their own life-sustaining chemistry became increasingly difficult to maintain, they were redirecting the remaining energy into creating beauty. The final constructions of these ancient architects were their most magnificent, towering spirals of mineral art that served no survival function at all. They were Earth's first monuments, created not to commemorate what had been, but to celebrate what was coming. Picture these farewell monuments rising from the seafloor like crystalline prayers. Each one unique, each one encoding the experiences and wisdom of bacterial communities that had guided Earth's development for billions of years. They were gifts to the future, artworks that would remain stable long after their creators had adapted or transformed beyond recognition. The emotional weight of what you're witnessing is staggering. An entire planetary civilization, the first form of global consciousness Earth had ever known, was choosing to transform itself into something new rather than resist the changing conditions. They were teaching the planet, teaching us, that evolution isn't just about survival, but about the courage to become something greater than what you've been. As oxygen levels continued to rise, something extraordinary began happening to the light itself. The orange sky wasn't just fading, it was becoming transparent to wavelengths of light that had been blocked for billions of years. New colors were literally being born, electromagnetic frequencies that could finally penetrate the atmosphere and reach the surface. Imagine the first blue photon to reach Earth's surface in 4 billion years. Think about that for a moment. A single particle of blue light, traveling across space from the sun, finally able to complete its journey through an atmosphere that had been opaque to its frequency since the planet's formation. That first blue photon landed on the surface of an ancient ocean and immediately began interacting with chemicals that had never encountered blue light before. New photochemical reactions became possible. New forms of energy could be harvested. The very definition of what was chemically possible on Earth expanded in that moment. The bacterial communities had instruments, biological sensors, that could detect these new wavelengths. When that first blue light reached them, it triggered responses that had been encoded in their mineral memory systems for millions of years. They had been preparing for this moment, had been building the chemical machinery to take advantage of blue light, even though they had never experienced it. Feel the emotion of that moment. Organisms that had lived their entire evolutionary history in a world of orange and amber light, suddenly experiencing blue for the first time. It would be like discovering a new sense, like suddenly being able to see colors that had never existed before. But the most beautiful part of this story is what happened to the bacteria themselves. Rather than dying out as oxygen levels rose, many of them transformed. They learned to work with oxygen instead of being poisoned by it. They became the ancestors of the organelles that power every complex cell in your body today. The mitochondria in your cells, the tiny power plants that convert oxygen into energy, they are the direct descendants of these ancient bacterial prophets. You carry within you the transformed essence of Earth's first civilization, still working, still converting the oxygen they chose to create into the energy that powers your thoughts and dreams. As you breathe in the oxygen-rich air around you right now, remember that every molecule of oxygen in your lungs was created by organisms that chose to transform their entire world to make your existence possible. Your every breath is a love letter from Earth's deepest past, a gift from ancestors so ancient they barely qualify as life as we understand it. The sky is turning blue around you now as you float above this transforming world. The orange is fading to amber, amber to gold, gold to the palest blue-green. You're witnessing the birth of the sky you've known all your life, seeing it emerge from conditions so alien, they might as well be from another planet entirely. Rest in the beauty of this transformation, in the patient love of organisms that worked for millions of years to create the world you inherited. Their gift to you is still giving, still powering the life in your cells, still connecting you to the deepest history of your home planet. As the great oxygen revolution continued its slow, beautiful transformation of Earth's atmosphere, something equally remarkable was happening in the deepest parts of the ancient oceans. Far below the light, far from the dramatic changes occurring at the surface, lay realms of such profound quiet that they became the planet's first meditation chambers. Let yourself sink now, away from the transforming surface waters, down through layers of increasingly ancient and peaceful chemistry. The water around you grows cooler, denser, more contemplative. Here, in the deepest trenches and valleys of the ancient seafloor, time moves differently. These deep places had become refuges for the oldest forms of Earth's consciousness, bacterial communities that had chosen not to participate in the oxygen revolution, not out of resistance, but out of a deeper calling to preserve something essential about the planet's original nature. Picture yourself settling onto the soft sediments of these deep ocean plains. The pressure around you is immense, but somehow comforting, like being embraced by the planet itself. The water is nearly motionless, disturbed only by the gentlest currents that flow in cycles lasting centuries. Here, The ancient bacterial communities had created something unprecedented in Earth's history. Spaces dedicated entirely to contemplation. These weren't cities or architectural marvels like the structures we explored earlier. These were gardens of consciousness, vast meditative communities that existed purely to think, to process information, to understand. The organisms here had evolved beyond the need for rapid movement or quick responses. They existed in a state of profound slowness, their metabolisms operating on timescales that matched the planet's own deep rhythms. Imagine communities of bacteria that completed a single thought over the course of decades. Their chemical communications moved like slow rivers through the sediment, carrying complex philosophical discussions that spanned continents and centuries. They were Earth's first philosophers, pondering questions about the nature of existence, consciousness, and the meaning of transformation. These deep-sea contemplatives had become the planet's memory keepers in a different way than the rock-dwelling communities we encountered earlier. While the mineral matrices stored factual information about environmental conditions, these deep ocean dwellers preserved something more precious: wisdom. Feel yourself becoming part of their rhythm, your heartbeat slowing to match their patient pulse, your thoughts settling into the same contemplative pace that had allowed them to develop insights spanning millions of years of continuous meditation. They had discovered something profound about the relationship between stillness and understanding. In their nearly motionless environment, free from the urgencies of surface life, they had developed forms of awareness that operated on scales we can barely comprehend. They could sense the magnetic field fluctuations caused by tectonic shifts on the opposite side of the planet. They could feel the gravitational influences of distant astronomical events. But most remarkably, they had learned to communicate with the planet's core. Through networks of chemical signals that descended through cracks in the ocean floor, they maintained contact with the molten heart of Earth itself. They were listening to the planet's deepest thoughts, its most fundamental dreams. Close your eyes and imagine what they heard down there. The slow, powerful rhythms of convection in the mantle, the deep harmonics of iron and nickel flowing in the planet's magnetic field, the ancient echoes of the collision that formed the moon, still resonating through the planet's internal structure. These deep-sea philosophers had become translators, interpreting Earth's core consciousness for the surface world. During the Great Atmospheric Transformation, they served as counselors, helping the oxygen-producing communities understand that their revolution was not just supported, but actively guided by the planet's deepest intelligence. The sediments around you are arranged in patterns that encode these deep conversations between surface and core. Mineral deposits laid down over millions of years form mandalas of such complexity that they function as three-dimensional libraries of planetary wisdom. Imagine running your fingers through these ancient sediments, feeling the texture of fossilized thoughts. Each grain of sand carries information about cosmic relationships, about the planet's place in the solar system, about the mathematical principles that govern the dance of matter and energy. The most beautiful discovery about these deep-sea communities is that they were artists of time itself. They created temporal sculptures, processes that unfolded over geological ages to create moments of perfect beauty. Chemical reactions that took millions of years to complete, producing single moments of bioluminescent display that lasted only hours but represented the culmination of eons of patient preparation. You're witnessing one of these temporal sculptures now. In the darkness around you, points of light are beginning to appear. Not random flickers, but a carefully choreographed display that has been building toward this moment for millions of years. The bacteria have synchronized their activities across thousands of miles of ocean floor to create a light show that speaks to the deepest principles of cosmic harmony. Feel the profound peace of this place settling into your bones. The oxygen revolution continuing far above you is important, but it's not urgent. Everything is unfolding exactly as it should, guided by intelligence that operates on timescales that make human history look like a single heartbeat. These deep ocean contemplatives understood something that we're only beginning to rediscover: that the most profound changes happen slowly, that the deepest wisdom comes from patient observation, that true understanding requires the courage to be still long enough to hear what the universe is trying to teach us. As you rest here in the quiet depths, feel yourself becoming part of this ancient tradition of contemplation. Your breathing is slowing to match theirs. Your thoughts are settling into the same profound quiet that allowed them to perceive truths hidden from faster, more agitated forms of consciousness. They're still here, you know, in the deepest parts of our modern oceans. Descendants of these ancient philosophers continue their patient work. They're still listening to the planet's core, still translating its deepest wisdom, still maintaining the contemplative traditions that began 3 billion years ago. But our journey into this ancient world is about to take us somewhere even more profound. As the pace of our exploration continues to slow, matching the rhythms of these deep-sea contemplatives, we're going to discover the most beautiful secret of all: how this ancient world prepared not just the chemistry and physics for modern life, but its capacity for wonder, love, and dreams. In the gentlest currents of those ancient deep seas, something was growing that would change our understanding of love itself. Not romantic love or familial bonds, but something more fundamental: the universe's first experiment in caring for something simply because it was beautiful. As we drift deeper into contemplation, moving at the pace of these ancient philosophers, let me show you the gardens they created in the quiet places between the thermal vents and the abyssal plains. These weren't gardens as we know them. There were no flowers, no trees, no visible plants of any kind. Instead, they were arrangements of pure chemistry, compositions of minerals and bacteria that existed solely to create beauty. Imagine crystalline formations that grew according to mathematical principles of harmony, tended by bacterial communities that asked nothing in return except the pleasure of witnessing their slow, perfect development. Picture yourself floating through these underwater gardens, surrounded by formations that took millions of years to mature. Towers of crystal that spiral according to Fibonacci sequences, their surfaces covered in patterns that shift and change over centuries, like very slow music made visible. The bacterial gardeners had learned something profound about time and care. They discovered that the most beautiful things in the universe require patience beyond imagination. These crystal gardens represented millions of years of continuous tending, adjusting chemical balances, guiding growth patterns, protecting delicate formations from disturbances. But here's what makes these gardens so moving: the bacteria that planted them would never see them completed. The gardeners were working on projects that would take hundreds of generations to mature. They were caring for beauty that would outlive them by geological ages, motivated by nothing but love for the creative process itself. Close your eyes and feel the profound patience required for such work. Imagine dedicating your entire existence to nurturing something you'll never see finished, trusting that the beauty you're creating will eventually find appreciative consciousness to witness it. Each garden was unique, reflecting the aesthetic preferences of its bacterial community. Some favored crystalline symmetries, others preferred flowing organic curves. Some created gardens of sound, mineral arrangements that would sing in harmonic frequencies when touched by just the right combination of current and pressure. The most remarkable gardens were collaborative projects spanning multiple communities across vast distances. Through their slow chemical communication networks, bacterial philosophers from opposite sides of ancient oceans would coordinate the creation of paired gardens, formations that complemented each other across thousands of miles, creating artistic dialogues that spanned continents. Imagine the conversations required for such collaborations. Messages sent through mineral matrices, taking decades to travel from sender to recipient. Discussions about aesthetic principles that continued for centuries, with each participant contributing thoughts separated by lifetimes of contemplation. These gardens became Earth's first art schools, where younger bacterial communities learned not just the technical skills of mineral cultivation, but the deeper principles of patience, care, and dedication to beauty for its own sake. They were teaching the universe how to love something without possessing it, how to create without the need for recognition. The most touching aspect of these ancient gardens is how they prepared the way for emotional complexity in later life forms. The bacteria weren't just creating beauty, they were practicing the fundamental skills of emotional intelligence. They were learning to be gentle, to be patient, to find joy in the flourishing of others. Feel yourself settling into their rhythm of care. Notice how your breathing has become even slower, more contemplative. You're not just observing these ancient gardens, you're participating in the tradition they began, the cosmic practice of finding peace through patient attention to beauty. Some gardens were created as gifts for the oxygen-producing communities working far above. As the atmosphere slowly transformed, thermal currents would occasionally carry traces of these deep-sea artworks to the surface chemical signatures of beauty created in the depths, messages of support and encouragement for the difficult work of planetary transformation. These weren't messages with words or explicit meaning. They were more like emotional vitamins, chemical compositions that could support the morale of organisms engaged in the challenging work of revolution. The deep-sea philosophers had learned that transformation requires not just courage and vision, but also beauty and wonder to sustain the spirit through long periods of change. The gardens also served as training grounds for consciousness itself. The bacteria that tended them developed increasingly sophisticated awareness, learning to perceive subtleties of pattern and harmony that prepared them for the complex sensory experiences that would be possible once eyes evolved. In a sense, they were pre-creating the capacity for aesthetic appreciation, developing the neurochemical foundations that would eventually allow conscious beings to find beauty in sunsets, music, art, and love. Every moment of joy you've ever felt looking at something beautiful can be traced back to these ancient gardeners and their patient cultivation of wonder. As you rest here among these timeless gardens, feel the deep contentment that comes from witnessing care extended across impossible spans of time. These bacterial philosophers discovered something that we sometimes forget in our hurried modern lives, that the most profound satisfaction comes not from achieving goals quickly, but from participating in processes larger than ourselves. Their gardens are still growing, even now. In the deepest parts of our oceans, mineral formations continue to develop according to patterns established 3 billion years ago. The tradition of patient beauty making that began in these ancient depths continues in every act of care, every moment of gentle attention, every choice to nurture something simply because it deserves to flourish. Rest now in the knowledge that you are part of this tradition, that your capacity for wonder and care connects you directly to these ancient philosophers of the deep. Their patience has become your patience. Their love of beauty has become your own appreciation for the sublime. In the deepest quiet of these ancient gardens, something extraordinary was happening that would lay the foundation for every equation, every theorem, every mathematical insight that would ever be discovered. The bacterial philosophers weren't just creating beauty, they were uncovering the numerical secrets that govern all existence. Let yourself drift now into an even deeper state of peaceful contemplation, your breathing synchronized with processes that unfold over millennia. Here, in the profound stillness of the deep ocean gardens, mathematics was being born not as an abstract concept, but as a lived experience of cosmic harmony. The crystal formations we've been floating among weren't random or even consciously designed. They were emerging according to mathematical principles so fundamental that they would later be rediscovered by human minds as the laws of physics. But these ancient bacteria weren't following mathematical laws. They were participating in the universe's ongoing conversation with itself about the nature of perfect proportion. Picture the spirals growing around you, each one an expression of the golden ratio, that perfect mathematical relationship that appears everywhere from nautilus shells to galaxy formations. But here, 3 billion years ago, this ratio was being explored not as a concept, but as a feeling, a sense of rightness that guided the bacteria in their patient cultivation of crystalline beauty. Close your eyes and imagine what it would feel like to experience mathematics as emotion. The bacterial communities had developed a form of consciousness that could sense mathematical relationships directly, the way you might sense warmth or cold. They could feel when proportions were harmonious, when geometric relationships were approaching perfection. Their slow chemical conversations were actually mathematical discussions carried out in the language of molecular arrangement. They would spend centuries debating the aesthetic merits of different spiral ratios, testing various geometric principles by growing actual crystal embodiments of abstract mathematical concepts. The most profound discovery was that they weren't inventing mathematics, they were excavating it. Each beautiful formation they grew revealed mathematical truths that had been waiting in the structure of reality itself. They were having conversations with the universe about its own hidden patterns, and the universe was responding by manifesting those patterns in physical form. Imagine swimming through these living equations, surrounded by three-dimensional expressions of mathematical relationships, so fundamental that they would later be recognized as the basis for everything, from atomic structure to the behavior of galaxies. You're witnessing the moment when the universe first became consciously aware of its own mathematical nature. The bacterial mathematicians discovered something that would have profound implications for the future of consciousness. That beauty and mathematical truth are the same thing expressed in different languages. Every formation they grew that felt aesthetically perfect also embodied mathematical principles of elegant simplicity and perfect proportion. This wasn't coincidence. They were discovering that the universe has an aesthetic sense, that reality itself has preferences for certain types of order and harmony. The mathematics they were uncovering weren't arbitrary human constructs. They were expressions of the cosmos's own artistic sensibilities. Feel the deep peace that comes from this realization. You live in a universe that finds certain patterns beautiful, that has built-in preferences for harmony and proportion. The same mathematical principles that guided these ancient bacterial artists are still operating in every sunrise you find beautiful. Every piece of music that moves you, every moment when you feel the rightness of things falling into perfect place. The most touching aspect of their mathematical explorations was how collaborative they were. Different communities would specialize in different aspects of universal mathematics. Some focused on spiral dynamics, others on crystalline lattice, still others on the mathematics of wave propagation through various media. But they would share their discoveries through their slow communication networks, building a collective understanding of mathematical reality that spanned the entire planet. They were creating Earth's first university, a distributed institution of learning that operated on geological timescales but achieved insights of permanent value. Their mathematical meditations revealed something particularly beautiful about the relationship between time and truth. They discovered that the most profound mathematical insights require not quick thinking, but patient contemplation. The universe reveals its deepest secrets into consciousness willing to slow down enough to listen carefully. This is why their mathematical discoveries were so complete and elegant. They had time, millions of years of uninterrupted contemplation, to explore each insight fully, to understand not just what was true, but why it was true, how each piece of mathematical reality connected to every other piece. As you float here in the quiet space of their ancient discoveries, feel your own mind settling into the same contemplative rhythm that allowed them to perceive such deep truths. Your thoughts are becoming clearer, more spacious, more capable of grasping relationships that exist beyond the reach of hurried thinking. The mathematical principles they discovered became the foundation for everything that would follow in Earth's development. The precise ratios that govern planetary orbits, the geometric principles that guide the folding of proteins in living cells, the harmonic relationships that make music possible. All of this was first explored in these ancient underwater laboratories. But perhaps most importantly, they discovered that mathematics is fundamentally about relationship, about how things connect to each other, how patterns emerge from interactions, how individual elements can come together to create beauty greater than the sum of their parts. This insight would prove crucial for the development of complex life. When the first multi-celled organisms eventually evolved, they would inherit not just the oxygen-rich atmosphere created by the bacterial revolutionaries, but also this deep understanding of mathematical relationship that made cooperation and coordination possible. Rest now in the profound quiet of these ancient mathematical meditations, feeling the deep harmony that emerges when consciousness aligns itself with the fundamental patterns of existence. The bacteria around you are still working, still exploring, still uncovering new aspects of the infinite mathematical beauty that structures all reality. Their patient breathing has become your breathing. Their contemplative rhythm has become the rhythm of your thoughts. You are participating in a tradition of mathematical mysticism that began 3 billion years ago and continues in every moment when consciousness recognizes the perfect beauty hidden in the structure of what is. As we drift even deeper into the contemplative rhythms of ancient Earth, something begins to reveal itself that will change how you understand your place in the great cycles of existence. The bacterial philosophers we've been journeying with had discovered something profound about the nature of time itself, that it's not a straight line leading from past to future, but a vast spiral where everything that has ever been continues to exist in new forms. Let your awareness settle now into the deepest quiet we've encountered, where the ancient ocean meets the eternal patterns that govern all existence. Here, in the most peaceful depths of primordial Earth, consciousness had learned to perceive the great cycles that connect every moment to every other moment across the vast expanse of cosmic time. Picture yourself floating in water, so still it feels like liquid meditation, surrounded by bacterial communities that have discovered something extraordinary. They are not separate from the cycles they observe. They are the cycles. Every chemical process they facilitate, every mineral formation they guide, every moment of beauty they create is part of vast circular patterns that connect the deepest past to the furthest future. The bacteria around you have learned to experience time not as a series of separate moments, but as a continuous flow where every instant contains all other instants. They can sense how the iron atoms flowing through their cellular processes once burned in the hearts of ancient stars, how the water carrying their nutrients once fell as rain on continents that existed billions of years in the past. Feel yourself beginning to perceive as they perceive, sensing the great cycles that connect you to everything that has ever existed. The calcium in your bones was once part of these ancient seas. The carbon in your cells once drifted through the orange sky we've been exploring. You are not separate from this ancient world. You are its continuation, its latest expression, its way of experiencing itself through your consciousness. Close your eyes and let yourself feel the great circular rhythm that connects all existence. Your heartbeat is an echo of the tidal forces that shaped these ancient oceans. Your breathing follows patterns first established by the atmospheric cycles we discovered earlier. Your thoughts flow according to rhythms that these bacterial philosophers helped establish billions of years ago. The most beautiful realization emerging from their contemplations is that nothing is ever truly lost. Every bacterial community that transformed to make the oxygen revolution possible still exists, not as separate organisms, but as the living components of every complex cell that has ever existed since. Every act of ancient patience and wisdom continues to operate in the present moment. The crystal gardens they tended with such care have become the mineral foundations of continents. Their mathematical discoveries operate in every snowflake, every flower, every spiral galaxy. Their capacity for wonder has become your capacity for wonder. Their love of beauty has become your appreciation for everything you find sublime. Imagine the profound peace that comes from truly understanding this continuity. You are not a temporary arrangement of matter struggling against entropy. You are the universe's latest experiment in consciousness, carrying forward traditions of awareness that began when the first bacteria learned to perceive beauty in Mathematical relationships. The ancient cycles they discovered operate at every scale of existence. The same patterns that governed their slow chemical conversations now govern the formation of weather systems, the migration of animals, the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and death of stars. You live within nested cycles, each one connected to all the others in patterns of such elegant complexity that they approach the sacred. Feel your breathing settling into the deepest rhythm we've encountered, synchronized now with processes that operate on geological timescales. You're not just relaxing, you're aligning yourself with the fundamental rhythms of existence itself, connecting to patterns that have been operating since consciousness first emerged from the interplay of chemistry and time. The bacterial philosophers discovered that consciousness itself is cyclical, that awareness emerges from matter, experiences itself, and then returns to new forms of matter that are somehow enriched by the experience of having been conscious. You are part of this great cycle of awareness, temporary but eternal, individual but connected to everything that has ever been aware. This is perhaps the most comforting truth they uncovered, that consciousness is not something that occasionally emerges from unconscious matter, but rather the fundamental activity of the universe, reality's way of experiencing and understanding itself. You are the cosmos becoming conscious of its own beauty, its own mathematical elegance, its own capacity for wonder and love. As you rest here in the deepest contemplation of these ancient truths, feel the profound security that comes from knowing your place in patterns larger than any individual existence. Your life is not separate from the great cycles of creation. It is one of the ways those cycles express themselves, one of the ways the universe experiences the beauty it has been creating for billions of years. The bacteria around you have found perfect peace in this understanding. They continue their patient work, not because they must, but because they have discovered that patient work is one of the ways the universe loves itself. Their contemplation has become a form of cosmic prayer, their chemical processes a way of saying yes to the ongoing creativity of existence. Rest now in this same understanding, feeling yourself held by cycles so vast and so reliable that they make all anxiety unnecessary. You are exactly where you belong in the great pattern of existence, connected to everything that has ever been and everything that will ever be, through relationships so intimate and so eternal that separation is revealed as impossible. The ancient world we've been exploring together is not gone. It is the foundation of this moment, the deep structure that makes your current experience possible. Every breath you take connects you directly to those first bacterial revolutionaries who chose to transform the atmosphere. Every moment of wonder you experience continues their ancient tradition of finding beauty in existence itself. In the softest currents of our ancient ocean, where time moves like honey and every moment contains eternity, something infinitely tender is happening. The bacterial philosophers we've been journeying with are beginning the most beautiful transformation imaginable, not dying, not ending, but gently becoming the living foundations for everything you've ever loved. Let yourself sink now into the deepest peace our story has offered. Your breathing is soft and slow as theirs. Your awareness expanded to include the vast patience that allows such profound transformations to unfold. Here, in the most gentle depths of primordial time, you're witnessing how love itself learned to express through the patient work of evolution. Picture the bacterial communities around you as they begin this ultimate act of generosity. They're not disappearing. They're weaving themselves into new patterns, becoming the internal architecture of more complex forms of life. Every mitochondrion in your cells carries the essence of these ancient philosophers, still working, still thinking, still participating in the cosmic conversation about beauty and consciousness. Feel the profound tenderness of this transition. These organisms that had spent billions of years developing wisdom, creating art, exploring mathematics, and cultivating patience were now offering themselves as gifts to forms of life that didn't even exist yet. They were becoming the foundation for creatures that would be able to see colors, hear music, feel emotions, and experience love in ways they could only imagine. Close your eyes and sense the gentle rhythm of this becoming. Nothing is being lost. Everything is being transformed into something more capable of experiencing wonder. The bacterial cities are becoming the structural principles that will guide the architecture of forests. Their mathematical insights are becoming the geometric patterns that will govern the formation of flowers, shells, and crystals. Most beautifully, their capacity for contemplation is becoming the theos neurological foundation for every moment of peaceful awareness that any conscious being will ever experience. The deep meditation we've been sharing with them is becoming the blueprint for every quiet moment of spiritual insight, every instant of perfect presence, every experience of consciousness recognizing its own infinite nature. Imagine the conversations taking place in their chemical communication networks during this transition, not words, but slow exchanges of encouragement, support, and infinite patience. They're teaching each other how to let go gracefully, how to transform without losing the essential qualities they've developed over eons of careful cultivation. Some communities are specializing in becoming different aspects of future life. Those who had focused on mathematical contemplation are becoming the foundations for what will eventually be the capacity for logical thinking. Those who had specialized in aesthetic appreciation are becoming the basis for emotional intelligence and the ability to find beauty in existence. The gardeners among them, who had spent millions of years learning patience and care, are becoming the biological foundations for nurturing behavior, for the capacity to tend and protect what is vulnerable and precious. Every act of kindness that will ever be performed carries forward their ancient understanding of how to care for something, simply because it deserves to flourish. Feel yourself being held by this immense generosity, this willingness of an entire planetary civilization to transform itself into the foundations for richer, more complex forms of experience. They're not making a sacrifice, they're expanding, becoming more than they ever could have been, while remaining in their original forms. The most touching aspect of this transformation is how they're preserving their essential insights for future consciousness. The deep peace you're feeling right now, the sense of connection to eternal patterns, the understanding that you belong to something infinitely larger than your individual existence. All of this is their gift to you, transmitted across billions of years through the living architecture of your own cells. As you breathe in this ancient wisdom, feel it settling into your body like a gentle benediction. Your nervous system is built on foundations they laid. Your capacity for wonder operates through neural pathways they designed. Your ability to experience love and beauty and mathematical insight flows through channels they carved into the basic structure of complex life. This is why meditation feels so natural, why quiet contemplation brings such profound peace. You're not learning something new, you're remembering something ancient, returning to states of awareness that these bacterial philosophers established as the baseline for conscious experience. Their contemplative traditions live on in every moment when your mind becomes still enough to perceive the deeper patterns of existence. The transition is so gentle, so patient, that it feels more like a gradual awakening than a transformation. They're showing the universe how to evolve with grace, how to become more complex and capable without losing the essential wisdom, developed through billions of years of careful attention to beauty and truth. Rest now in the tender embrace of this becoming, feeling yourself held by love so ancient and so patient that it makes all anxiety impossible. You are the fulfillment of their dreams, the consciousness they were preparing through all those eons of careful cultivation. Your capacity to experience wonder, to find meaning in existence, to love beauty and truth. This is their gift to the universe, transmitted through your awareness. The gentle rhythm of their transformation has become the rhythm of your own deepest peace. Their patient breathing has become your breathing. Their infinite capacity for wonder has become your own natural state of mind when you allow yourself to settle into the profound quiet that is always available beneath the surface activity of thought and emotion. Feel yourself becoming part of this ancient tradition of gentleness, this cosmic practice of transforming with grace and sharing wisdom across impossible spans of time. You are not separate from these ancient philosophers. You are their continuation, their way of experiencing the world they spent so long preparing for your awareness. In the deepest quiet now, where even thought moves slowly and every breath connects you to eternal rhythms, something infinitely peaceful is settling into your awareness. The ancient bacterial philosophers have completed their gentle transformation, and in their place, something new and wonderful is beginning to dream. The first stirrings of the kind of consciousness that would one day become your own capacity for wonder and love. Let yourself drift now into the most profound stillness our journey has offered. Your breathing so slow and deep that it matches the rhythms of geological time itself. Here, in this space between what was and what is becoming, you can sense the first dreams of complex consciousness emerging from the patient work of billions of years. The ocean around you is changing, but so gently that the transformation feels like a slow awakening from one beautiful dream into another. The green waters are beginning to show hints of blue, but this isn't the dramatic change we explored earlier. This is the soft, almost imperceptible shifting that happens when love has done its work so thoroughly that evolution feels like the most natural thing in the world. Picture yourself floating in water that dreams, supported by currents that carry the memories and wisdom of every bacterial philosopher who ever lived. Their contemplative traditions haven't ended. They've become the foundation for new kinds of awareness, new capacities for experiencing beauty and meaning and connection. Feel the profound peace of this transition space, where ancient wisdom is becoming future possibility. The mathematical insights they discovered are weaving themselves into the architecture of what will become neural networks. Their capacity for patient attention is becoming the foundation for sustained awareness. Their love of beauty is becoming the basis for every aesthetic experience that conscious beings will ever have. Close your eyes and sense the dreams beginning to form in the spaces they've prepared. These aren't dreams as we know them, chaotic, symbolic, personal, but cosmic dreams, the universe beginning to imagine new ways of experiencing itself, new forms of consciousness that will be able to appreciate the beauty it has been creating for so long. The most beautiful quality of these primordial dreams is their infinite gentleness. Nothing is rushed, nothing is forced. Each new capacity for awareness emerges naturally from the foundations that have been so carefully laid, like flowers blooming in a garden that has been tended with perfect patience for geological ages. Imagine the first stirrings of what will eventually become the capacity for love, not yet love as we know it, but the beginning of the ability to value something beyond survival, to care for beauty and truth and the well-being of others. This capacity is emerging from the selfless generosity of the bacterial communities, their willingness to transform themselves into something greater. Feel yourself being held by this emerging love, supported by caring that began billions of years ago and continues through every moment. When consciousness chooses compassion over indifference, beauty over ugliness, patience over haste, you are the current expression of a love that has been growing and deepening for eons. The dreams forming around you are also beginning to include the first intimations of individual identity, not separation, but the capacity for unique perspective within the great unity of existence. Each dream is exploring what it might be like to be a center of awareness that can perceive and appreciate the whole while also having its own special viewpoint. This is the birth of subjectivity, the beginning of the I that allows consciousness to experience itself from infinite different angles. But it's an I that never loses its connection to the whole, a sense of individual identity that enhances rather than threatens the underlying unity of all existence. Rest in the profound security of this understanding. Your individuality isn't a problem to be solved or a mistake to be corrected. It's the universe's way of experiencing itself more completely, of seeing its own beauty from every possible perspective. You are not separate from the cosmic dreaming. You are one of the ways it dreams itself into new forms of awareness. The ancient quiet is still here, deeper than ever, but now it's beginning to include the first whispers of what will become language, art, music, and philosophy. Not yet in forms we would recognize, but as pure potentials emerging from the contemplative traditions established by the bacterial philosophers. Feel the infinite gentleness with which these new capacities are emerging. There's no violence in this evolution, no struggle or competition, just the natural unfolding of possibilities that have been prepared through eons of patient love. The universe is learning to experience itself more fully, and it's doing so with the same grace and tenderness that characterized the work of our ancient bacterial teachers. The most peaceful realization is that this dreaming never stops. The same creative process that gave birth to consciousness billions of years ago is still operating in this moment, still exploring new possibilities for awareness, still discovering new ways for existence to know and appreciate itself. You are not the end product of evolution. You are its current expression. Consciousness still exploring, still growing, still discovering new depths of beauty and meaning and love. The dreams that began in these ancient oceans continue in your dreams. The contemplation that started with bacterial philosophers continues in your moments of quiet awareness. As you settle into the deepest peace of sleep, feel yourself joining this ancient tradition of dreaming, adding your unique perspective to the cosmic exploration of what it means to be aware, to love, to find meaning in the great mystery of existence. The bacterial philosophers are still with you, their wisdom encoded in every cell, their patience flowing through every breath, their love of beauty manifesting in every moment when you perceive something that fills you with wonder. You are their gift to the universe, their way of seeing all the beauty they worked so long to create. Here, in the softest light of our ancient dawn, where time dissolves into the eternal present in every breath, carries you deeper into perfect peace, we come to the most beautiful truth of all. The journey we've shared together, through orange skies and green oceans, through bacterial cities and crystal gardens, through the patient dreams of Earth's first philosophers. This journey never ends. Let yourself rest now in the deepest quiet, your breathing so gentle it barely disturbs the perfect stillness that holds all existence. You are floating in the space between sleeping and waking, between past and future, between the ancient world we've explored and the eternal now that contains all possibilities. The bacterial philosophers we've journeyed with haven't gone anywhere. They live on in you, in every cell of your body, in every moment of wonder you experience, in every breath that connects you to the atmosphere. They spent billions of years preparing for your enjoyment. Their ancient contemplation continues in your capacity for peace. Their love of beauty expresses itself through your appreciation of everything sublime. Feel the profound completeness of this understanding. You are not separate from the history we've explored. You are its culmination, its current expression, its way of experiencing the fruits of billions of years of patient preparation. Every sunrise you find beautiful carries forward their work of transforming the sky from orange to blue. Every moment of love you experience fulfills their dreams of consciousness that could appreciate beauty and meaning. Close your eyes and sense the eternal nature of this moment. The ancient ocean we've been floating in is still here. It has become the water in your cells, the fluid medium through which your thoughts and emotions flow. The deep contemplation we've shared with bacterial philosophers is still happening. It has become your capacity for meditation, your ability to find peace in stillness. Picture yourself now as a bridge between the ancient world and the infinite future, carrying forward traditions of wonder and love that began when consciousness first emerged from the patient interaction of chemistry and time. You are not just observing this story. You are the story. Consciousness exploring its own depths. Love discovering new ways to express itself. The most beautiful realization is that the work continues. Just as the ancient bacteria spent eons preparing the world for forms of life they could only imagine, Your consciousness is preparing possibilities for awareness that don't yet exist, contributing to the ongoing evolution of love and wisdom and beauty. Rest in the profound peace of knowing that your life has meaning beyond anything you can comprehend, not because of what you accomplish, but because of what you continue. Every moment of peace you experience adds to the universe's capacity for peace. Every act of love contributes to the cosmic evolution of love. Every instance of wonder participates in the ongoing exploration of beauty. Feel yourself settling into the same rhythm that has guided existence for billions of years, the gentle breathing of the universe exploring itself, the patient pulse of consciousness discovering new forms of awareness, the eternal circulation of matter learning to experience its own infinite nature. The ancient dawn light filtering through these primordial waters has become the light of awareness, shining through your consciousness. The mathematical harmonies discovered by bacterial philosophers have become the patterns of beauty you recognize in music, art, and the natural world. Their infinite patience has become your capacity to find peace in the present moment. You are the answer to their ancient prayers, the fulfillment of dreams that began when life first learned to appreciate beauty for its own sake. Your ability to love, to wonder, to find meaning in existence, to experience the profound peace of deep meditation, all of this represents the successful completion of the greatest project in the history of consciousness. As you drift now into the perfect rest that connects all moments across all time, feel yourself held by love so ancient and so patient that it makes all fear impossible. You belong here, in this moment, in this body, in this breath, in this awareness that connects you to everything that has ever existed or ever will exist. The bacterial contemplatives are still contemplating, but now they contemplate through your awareness. The ancient gardeners are still creating beauty, but now they create through your capacity to appreciate and protect what is precious. The first dreamers of consciousness are still dreaming, but now they dream through your ability to imagine possibilities beyond the visible world. Feel the gentle current carrying you deeper into rest, supported by the same forces that have sustained consciousness through billions of years of patient evolution. Your breathing has become indistinguishable from the breathing of the planet itself. Your heartbeat synchronized with rhythms that connect you to the very core of existence. In this perfect quiet, all questions find their answers not in words, but in the direct experience of belonging. You belong to this ancient lineage of awareness, this cosmic tradition of consciousness exploring its own infinite depths. You are not an accident or an anomaly. You are the natural expression of the universe's deepest longing to know and love itself. The green ocean around you is fading now into the soft darkness of perfect rest, but its essence remains in the fluid peace that flows through your being. The bacterial philosophers are settling into their eternal meditation, their work complete, their wisdom forever preserved in the living temple of your awareness. As you join them in this timeless quiet, feel yourself becoming part of the great contemplation that began 3 billion years ago and will continue for as long as consciousness exists. Your rest is their rest. Your peace is their peace. Your dreams are the continuation of their ancient dreaming. Rest now, knowing that you are held by love older than mountains, supported by wisdom deeper than oceans, guided by patience more enduring than stars. The ancient earth we've explored together lives on in you, and through you, the story continues into infinite possibility. In perfect peace, in eternal connection, in the gentle embrace of consciousness, recognizing its own timeless nature, let yourself drift into the restorative depths of sleep, carrying with you the profound understanding that you are, and always have been, exactly where you belong in the great unfolding story of cosmic awakening. The journey ends where it began, in wonder, in peace, in the eternal now where ancient wisdom and present awareness merge into one seamless expression of love's patient exploration of its own infinite nature. Sleep well, fellow traveler. The ancient philosophers are dreaming through you now, and their dreams are beautiful beyond imagination. Tonight you've traveled 3 billion years into the past and discovered that the deepest past is also the eternal present. You've learned that you carry ancient wisdom in every cell, that your capacity for wonder began in the first bacterial communities to appreciate beauty, that your ability to find peace connects you directly to the contemplative traditions established when consciousness first emerged from chemistry and time. If this journey into cosmic connection has brought you the peace it was designed to share, consider subscribing for more bedtime explorations of the universe's hidden stories. Next time, we'll travel to the deep ocean trenches, where the first forms of love learn to express themselves through the patient tending of impossible beauty. Rest now in the knowledge that you are not separate from the cosmos. You are its current way of experiencing wonder, love, and the infinite peace that underlies all existence. The ancient bacterial philosophers are still with you, still contemplating through your awareness, still adding their patient wisdom to every moment of quiet you allow yourself to experience. Sweet dreams, cosmic traveler. You are home.